Hello everyone, my name is Xiaodong Yue. I'm a professor at Captain Normal University. Welcome to my course on personality psychology. The third behavioral approach to understanding personality development is the social learning theory. The social learning theory was proposed by Professor Albert Bandura, and he was professor at Stanford University for many years, and was also the president of American Psychological Association in 1973. Okay. And he also did studies on aggression in the beginning, later on self-efficacy. Interestingly, he majored in psychology because he wanted to take morning classes. Bandura emphasized on the importance of observation, imitation, and self-reward in the development of learning, of social skills, interpersonal interactions, and other behaviors. And it is not necessary to perform any observable behaviors. And he emphasized that it's not necessary to perform any observable behaviors or receive any rewards to learn. Now, this is actually revolutionary for learning or behavioral psychology. Behavioral psychology believes that everything has to be rewarded or punished to develop something desirable or undesirable, to move them away. But for Bandura, no, you don't need to present anything rewarding. People want to be self-rewarding for imitating, for learning something they care. So Bandura argues that people could learn by observing how others people behaved or act. And this kind of learning does not have to be reinforced or trained externally by presentation of any kind of occurrence, as it is self-reinforcing. And people's expectations about the consequences of performance are the reinforcers, because they want to do the thing they like to imitate. And he's most famous for having done the Bobo doll experiment. That means in 1961 and 63, during these 3 years, Albert Bandura studied the children's aggressive behavior after they watched a human adult model act aggressively towards a Bobo doll, a doll-like toy with a rounded bottom and low center of the mass that rocks back to the upright positions after it has been knocked down. And there are different variations of the experiment. The most notable experiment measured the children's behaviors after seeing the human model get rewarded, get punished, or experienced no consequence for physically abusing or attacking the Bobo doll. And experiments demonstrate that people learn not only by being rewarded or punished, but also learn from watching somebody else doing things that interest them or stimulate them. The experiments are important about effects of observational learning. And also the studies have practical implications as they provide real-life evidence of how children can be influenced by watching violent behaviors from movies, TV, and people at home or at school or elsewhere. And having said all of this, let's watch how Albert Bandura did the Bobo doll experiment. And before you watch it, please keep these questions in mind. First, what did Bandura say about social learning theory? And second, what did the lady do to the Bobo doll in the experiment? Thirdly, what did the boy do to baby doll after watching the videotape? And fourthly, compare with the lady, what more did the boy do to the Bobo doll?
About to see is taken from an early experiment on learning of aggressive styles of behavior through modeling. Children watched a filmed adult perform novel aggressive acts toward a inflated doll, and the physical aggression was accompanied by novel hostile remarks. We later measured how much of this modeled aggression the children had learned just by watching. Now, the measurement of learning of aggression uses simulated targets rather than live ones. For example, to test how well bombardiers have learned bombing strategies, you would use simulated targets rather than require them to bomb San Francisco or New York. The model pummeled the doll with a mallet, flung it in the air, kicked it repeatedly, threw it down and beat it. It was once widely believed that seeing others vent aggression would drain the viewer's aggressive drive. As you can see, exposure to aggressive modeling is hardly cathartic.
Now you watch it. You can see even the experiment is very simple, but the influence is powerful because it shows that people could just simply learn by observation for something self-rewarding or self-interest. Later on, Bandura also proposes two principles of social learning. One is called reciprocal determinism, rather than simply the behavioral determinism. That means personality is formed out of the influence of both external factors, like the reward punishment, and internal factors, like the beliefs and expectations. And second is the self-efficacy theory. That means the extent to which people believe in themselves in making the expected changes, behavioral or otherwise, determine how successful they can eventually become. So you need to have the confidence in yourself. And that self-confidence is called self-efficacy, and it really matters for your performance. Later on, ample studies have shown that self-efficacy beliefs can help to overcome various psychological problems such as depression, PTSD, test anxiety, phobias, substance abuse, and bereavement, etc. So, taken together, the central assumption of social learning theory to personality is a collection of desired imitations. For example, assertiveness, confidence, courage, creativity, endurance, humor. You can simply learn from others, emulate their behaviors accordingly. Finally, then come back to Albert Bandura, how he got into psychology. He actually got into psychology by convenience, because when he was enrolled at University of British Columbia in Canada in 1946, he wanted to study biology initially, but he needed to work in the afternoon. Instead, he took the introductory psychology course because the course was taught only in the morning. This would allow him to work in the afternoon. And for this simple reason, Albert Bandura majored in psychology, eventually becomes a famous psychologist. So wisdom from Bandura's route to psychology: people don't have to work for rewards. They can work for their own self-rewards. Second, people should study for identifying and resolving social problems as well as for fulfilling societal needs. And thirdly, people should strive for their own interests. Now the point is, Albert Bandura is the first who applied his theory to social issues like school violence. And he really demonstrated that children learn violent behavior from watching TV, from watching their parents being violent. And that has to be attended. Okay, having said all of this, I want to say that in 2009, I was able to attend a lecture by Professor Albert Bandura. I want to show this photo to you, not to show off my experience, but to let you feel that I feel empowered by taking a photo with him. And I personally asked him how you got into psychology. And he told me a story. Initially, he was interested in biology, but then he had to take psychology because it allowed him to work in the afternoon. I thought a lot about this. He got into psychology by convenience. But then he was a hard-working person. He proved himself to be a very renowned psychologist. If he got into biology, he probably would also make himself to become a renowned biologist. Whatever he does, he's a hard-working person. He's a creative person, and that is all that matters. And having said all of this, I finished this talk, and I want you to remember the psychological principles for personality development from the behavioralism, as well as the interesting stories of the famous psychologists, how they survived and thrived in the discipline of psychology.